In our family, we had one rule, just one, but it was absolute. Every single night, without fail, the last person to go to bed had to lock the front door from the inside, and then this was the weird part, place a small iron figurine of a crow on the floor right in front of it. No one ever explained why. Whenever I asked my parents, they'd just get this distant, haunted look in their eyes and say, "It's for our protection. Just do it." My older sister, Clara, was the same. She'd just shake her head and tell me not to question it. Growing up, it was just part of the nightly routine, like brushing your teeth. But as I got older, it started to feel less like a quirky family tradition and more like a bizarre, suffocating ritual. One night, when I was 17, my parents were out of town for their anniversary, and Clara was staying over at a friend's place. It was the first time I'd ever been completely alone in the house overnight. A little thrill of rebellion went through me. For the first time, I was the last one up, and the responsibility of the crow fell to me. I walked to the front door, my hand on the lock. I turned it, heard the familiar click, and then looked at the heavy iron crow sitting on the entryway table. It was cold and ugly, its little black eyes seeming to stare right through me. And I just thought, this is ridiculous. It's a piece of metal. What is it possibly going to do? So, in a moment of teenage defiance, I left it on the table. I went upstairs to my room, feeling a strange mix of guilt and freedom, and fell asleep. I woke up to a sound. It was a faint scratching, coming from downstairs. At first, I thought it was just the house settling, or maybe a branch scraping against a window. But it didn't stop. It was rhythmic, persistent. Scratch, scratch, scratch. It was coming from the front door. My heart started pounding in my chest. I crept out of my bed and tiptoed to the top of the stairs, peering down into the darkness of the foyer. The scratching was louder here. It was the sound of long, sharp nails dragging slowly down the wood of the door. Then, a new sound started. A low, guttural sniffing right at the bottom of the door, as if something was trying to catch a scent from underneath it. My blood ran cold. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Suddenly a voice whispered from the other side of the door. It was a dry, raspy sound, like dead leaves skittering across pavement. It said my name. My full name. It knew who I was. Panic seized me. I scrambled back into my room, slammed the door, and shoved my dresser in front of it. I hid in my closet, shaking, listening to the scratching and the sniffing for what felt like hours. Just as the first light of dawn started to peek through my window, the sounds stopped. Complete silence. I stayed in that closet until the sun was fully up, too terrified to move. When I finally worked up the courage to go downstairs, the front door was untouched. There were no marks, no signs of anything. It was like it had all been a dream. When my parents got home later that day, I didn't say a word. I was too scared they'd be angry, too scared to admit what happened. That night, my dad was the last one up. I watched from the stairs as he locked the door and carefully placed the iron crow on the floor. The next day, I cornered Clara. I told her everything. Her face went pale. She pulled me into her room and closed the door. She explained that the rule, the crow, it was all because of a curse placed on our family generations ago. A creature, she said, that hunts our bloodline. It can't cross a threshold protected by iron, and it can't enter unless it smells its prey, our specific family scent, unprotected. The crow wasn't just a symbol. It was a magical ward, forged with the blood of our first ancestor to escape it. She told me about our great-great-uncle, who thought it was all a fairy tale. He left the crow off the door one night. They found his room empty the next morning. No broken windows, no forced entry. He was just gone. The only thing left behind was a single, long, black feather on his pillow. "The creature," she whispered, "is drawn to our blood. That's why it only comes for us. It can't hurt anyone who isn't a direct descendant." I asked her what would have happened if it had gotten in. She just looked at me. Her eyes filled with a terror I'd never seen before, and said, "You don't want to know. No one who knows has ever come back to tell the tale." That night, my friend Alex was staying over. He was a skeptic about everything, and when he saw me placing the crow in front of the locked door, he chuckled. "You guys still do that weird crow thing? What is it, for good luck?" I just looked at him and said, "Something like that." Later that night, we were watching a movie in the living room when we heard it. The scratching. It was back. Alex froze, his eyes wide. "What was that?" he whispered. The scratching came again, louder this time, followed by that horrifying, low sniffing sound. I grabbed Alex's arm and pulled him towards the back of the house, my heart hammering against my ribs. "We have to be quiet," I mouthed. The whispering started again, just outside the front door. But this time, it was different. It wasn't just my name. It was my dad's name, my mom's, Clara's. A dry, rasping voice, listing us, calling for us. Alex looked at me, his face a mask of pure terror. "What is that thing?" he breathed. I put a finger to my lips, my eyes fixed on the iron crow visible in the hall. It was our only defense. We could hear the thing circling the house now, scratching at the windows, sniffing at the vents. It was looking for another way in. It was looking for one of us. Alex and I huddled in the kitchen, away from all the doors and windows, listening to the sounds of this thing, hunting my family. Then we heard a crash from upstairs. Glass shattering. My parents' bedroom. My blood turned to ice. My mum screamed. My dad yelled my name. The thing was inside. It had found another way in. I wanted to run, to scream, to hide, but my feet were rooted to the floor. Alex was pulling on my arm, trying to get me to the basement. But all I could hear were the sounds of a struggle from upstairs. And then a horrible, sickening silence. A moment later, a floorboard creaked at the top of the stairs. Something was coming down. Slowly. Deliberately. It wasn't my parents. I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that my family was gone. And it was my fault. I broke the rule. I showed it the way. Now, it was coming for the rest of us. Alex and I scrambled into the pantry, pulling the door shut just as heavy, unnatural footsteps hit the bottom of the stairs. The sniffing started again, right outside the pantry door. It could smell me. It knew I was in here. The handle began to jiggle. It was trying to get in. Alex and I held our breath, pressed against the back wall in the darkness, listening to the scraping and the rattling. This was it. This was the end. But then it stopped. The footsteps receded. We heard the front door open and then close. And then silence. We stayed in that pantry until morning. When we finally came out, the house was a wreck. Upstairs, my parents' room was empty. They were gone, just like my great-great-uncle. On their bed, lying side by side, were two long black feathers. The iron crow was still by the front door, untouched. I don't know why it left. Maybe the sun was coming up. Maybe it only takes what it came for. All I know is that my family is gone, and this curse is now mine to carry. Every night I lock the door, and every night I place the crow on the floor. Thanks for listening. If you have stories about strange family traditions, I'd love to hear them in the comments.